Well, today we're out. This is the 10th of June 23. It would have been my poor mum's birthday today. She passed away 20 years ago. 21 years ago, actually. This is the, we're kind of take two from yesterday. I was out to the castle. I haven't loaded anything, but I'm going out to the castle. This is the Monzie estate, obviously. Well, not obviously, if you don't know the area. But this field in here is called the cavalry. The reason for the cavalry is because it was occupied by the troops in 1916 before they were shunted off to the First World War. A lot of the Black Watch were here, set up in camp, horses and tents and stuff like that. I've got a picture somewhere. But this is the cavalry. And then we've got, I've got a car behind me, and we've got the cricket pitch over there, because I used to play cricket on it, and we've also got the Witch's Stone field just at the back. I'll have to go, there's a car behind me. Keep it easy, Annie, on this track. Yeah, sorry about that. There's a car to my rear, which is obviously coming out to visit the castle. Likewise. It's an open day. Well, what they do is they open for about 3 weeks per year. Normally from mid-May until, well, third week in May until the middle of June. It's a gorgeous day to be driving across the estate. The stone in the field, that's the Witch's Stone, is the name of the field, but for obvious reasons, what I was talking about yesterday in detail, was that's the Witch's Stone to mark the spot where the burning barrel for the witch, which was rolled down from Cape McNiven's Crag, because that was the witch's name. Well, she wasn't a witch in my opinion, she was just a poor lady who owned a cat. But there's a story which I was talking about in detail yesterday. I will load that. But Cape McNiven was burned at the stake, or at least burned in the rolling barrel, sent down the hill in the year 1715. And she lived along on the banks of the Shaggy. There's no evidence of her property, but records indicate that she lived on the banks of the Shaggy, just down from the Church Mens, which obviously is situated by the Shaggy burn, along next to the village of Monzie. Slow down, Andy. This track is a bit bumpy in places. So I do have charts indicating about 60% of the field names, but I need to contact the estate and try and get the rest of the field names, which to fill in, because there's a lot of information I need to talk about out here, because I worked as a field worker for Perth and Connaught Council back in the 80s, and part of my job was to interview everybody from the parish of Monzie, simply chap in people's doors and ask relevant questions. And the questions, I've talked about this, but I've not loaded anything. I'm sorry if I repeat anything, but one of the questions, I think it was number 10 on the list, was have you ever experienced an earthquake? Talking about here in Monzie Parish. And as I recall, the answers were 100% that they all had experienced some form of earth tremors, enough to shake crockery from the dressers and knock things over and stuff like that, and cause a bit of a fright for the residents of the properties and stuff. So as I say, good afternoon, Mr. Jackdaw. It's a private estate. I don't come along here. It's a beautiful place. But I won't repeat much of what I was talking about yesterday, because otherwise, well, it's duplication, isn't it? We're zooming along to the castle. I was a bit late in the day yesterday, and so I made a decision. I kind of rather hoping this would happen. So it's 2 o'clock to 4:30 today, so it's just coming up for 2 o'clock now. And I've been here before, obviously, and also had guidance around the castle, and I know her ladyship well. She knows me. not so sure if she'll allow me to take the camera indoors, of course, but there she goes. But I won't photograph her for obvious reasons. Well, good afternoon from the gardens here at Monzie Castle. Her ladyship has said, if you want to wander around the gardens, feel quite free, have a look at things. I said, well, that would be great, thank you. I obviously didn't open camera inside the building because it's just not the done thing, but isn't this fantastic? Really, really beautiful pond with all the irises. That's all iris across there and other vegetation. And look at that, it's beautiful. It's been a really interesting chat and really good actually. Castle Hill. Well, this is Monzie Castle from the west. Gardens everywhere. Lovely beds. Much of the walled garden here, of course, would have been planted out for vegetables for the use in the house. When it was, there's lots of gooseberries and stuff I notice here. Gooseberries and raspberry bushes and stuff. There are some weeds as well, unfortunately, but it's just the way it is. Look at the fantastic greenhouse. No longer in use. So good. Really good. Look at the poppies, Andy. Look at these red poppies. It's a favourite of my mother's. The poppies. She had a garden just like this, full of poppies. So gorgeous. She never liked to put red and white flowers in together, neither did my grandfather. But here the Angelica is coming through amongst the poppies. It's just that these gardens need to be maintained, and it's not possible in this day and age to do these gardens to an industrial scale. That's a hostel, and that's is that Lady's Mantle? Something similar. There's a pink boss. Look at the poppies. My mum had these. Really, really pretty. And the lupins as well, these deep lilac, almost purple coloured lupins, and lots of the honeysuckle and azaleas everywhere, and the clematis. It's so fantastic. Anyway, I thoroughly enjoyed being here today, I really have. I'm glad I came along. Chat that I had with the ladyship was most interesting, I have to tell you. Well, I'm not going to tell you, that's the point. The chance of all my questions and more. On the 4th of January 1908, I mean, this is in the height of the Edwardian times. You can just use your imagination to all the numbers of staff that were being involved. But what happened at the castle was there was a night's entertainment as a thank you to all the staff by the castle tenants, the family called the Richmonds. And little did they know on the 4th of January that on the 22nd of April 1908 there'd be a tremendous fire, and it started in the main hallway fire and spread very quickly, and the situation was one of the staff members was dispatched by horseback to Crieff, and they raced in and sent the fire brigade with all speed. The castle's on fire, and what the staff then proceeded to do was carry out all the expensive Rembrandts and other oil paintings and fabulous things. They salvaged as much as they could, and obviously the heavy furniture was destroyed, but they certainly got most of the most expensive pictures and artwork and whatnot, but so much was destroyed. But the inners of the castle are absolutely gorgeous, superb, and everything of the castle when it was refurbished. Remember, the Crichtons were based in California at this time, so they just instructed the chap who was there to just, you know, get themselves down and whatever was required, just get it all bought. There's plenty of money, and everything is dated almost the same. So it's very much like if you went to your local retail outlet and bought carpets and furniture and all the rest of it, all in the same month, everything would be dated. If you never touched it again, well, that's exactly what it's like inside the beautiful castle. One of the questions I did ask Her Ladyship was in regards to the death of her father-in-law, Major Charles Maitland McGill Crichton, in 1968. I showed her this photograph. It's a photograph of myself and my little sister, one of my little sisters at least, and Granny had taken us up to the Upper Knock. I remember distinctly, it was July 1968, and having viewed, well, Granny had pointed out the castle and told us it was Monzie Castle. And I was staring down and I was absolutely amazed by the lines of black vehicles all trundling along the driveway. I remember this vividly, and I remember one of these old-fashioned Mercedes, and so anyway, I said to Her Ladyship, I says, when the Major died, was that in July 1968? And she says, no, it was the 5th of April 1968. So I told her about my little story about seeing all the black cars, and she said, well, certainly there was a lot of comings and goings thereafter, so it is possible you've seen a convoy of vehicles of visitors, but I can't be more specific. But it certainly was a question that I had always wanted an answer to, so I was very grateful for her ladyship to enlighten me. And of course, the Major was the instrumental. He's one of the early pioneers of generating his own electricity. And this was done very successfully on his estate. It still is. And any electricity that's unused is then sent onto the national grid. At a cost, of course. But there was problems. And after Loch Turret was constructed in the late 60s and opened also in 1968, problems then became apparent that the normal water supplies that fed into to generate the electricity, namely the Shaggy Burn, much of the waters were then being diverted up in the mountains across through pipelines and stuff to the reservoir and down to the lower power station and stuff in Glenturret. Now I know for a fact that this went to the Court of Session back in, I think it was 2012. I'm not sure of the outcome. It was the state versus Scottish Water, but I've no idea what the outcome of the court case was. But certainly, even in my time, I mean, I remember the Shaggy Burn flowing much more swiftly, the Kelty and also the Barwick and Turret. But now it's often, in hot weather at least, it's just a trickle. And even in spate, it doesn't give you the same dramatic, splodge of water that would normally come over the Turret Falls, the Barwick Falls, the Kelty Falls, or the Shaggy Falls, sometimes called the Mini Falls. But certainly the Kelty Falls and the Barwick and Turret, I've been there when the waters are raging over, so there must have been quite a sight pre-1968 to see these waterfalls in action. But I thought it was good. I told her about the fete. I said I remember being there. Nicholas Fairbairn, the Conservative MP, was at the fete. She said, "Oh yes, goodness me, you've got a great memory." She said, "That was a long time ago. How do you remember these things?" And as I say, I was talking about Mrs. Orchardson and stuff like that, and it was all very kindly, and I thoroughly enjoyed viewing the innards of the house once more. It's never changed, not one bit, since Edwardian times. Indeed, no cost was spared in the doing up of the property after the horrible fire of 1908, which was it was a tenant at the castle, which was down to a coal fire in the main foyer of the hallway, but there was some damage to the property was still visible, namely the fireplaces themselves, but everything else, the windows I mentioned remained intact, and it's fabulous windows, and the castle itself was not structurally damaged, thank goodness. But anyway, I'm going to mention a little bit more here. The Monzie estate back in 1939 was this location for the third World Jamboree for the Scout movement, and people came from all over the world to this location for the Jamboree, and Remember, this is just simply a few weeks before the outbreak of World War II. And I know for a fact it's from my father's memoirs that he said many of the Polish and other nationals from Europe were very concerned, and lots of them started to head home early. No idea if any of these poor chaps survived the war, but here's a couple of pictures anyway of the rover moot. I'll probably come back to this story in much more detail, and probably come back to talk about the field names of the Monzie estate in much more detail, and also some of the other information which I obtained when I was working as a field worker, as I've talked about. Sweet Monzie, her fragrant memories spill out from shaggy dell, cowslip bright yellow, in pasture gather bees, cattle shade under lime tree, sun bakes parched land, stream recedes defeated, odd pheasant shrill call, pleasant ditch flora fills, afternoon hot and still, flies torment, sheep lazy to graze, rabbit quietly still, cyclist upon bend, reaches hill, calm whirring, gently steers, downhill brakes depend, cattle gruff to snort, thirst to quench, wood pigeon startles, heavy wings clapping, afternoon settles, in shimmering haze, pheasant croak crows, summer slows easy, grasshopper stops chatting, restful land pleases. Bit of a deja vu from yesterday, but I just wanted to see the Witch's Stone again. It's got that field name, but it's also, yeah, it's a stone. And a really, really interesting visit to the castle. Of course, it won't be open to the public for another year now, well, 11 months or more. As I said already, the gardens and the estate are private. And as I was talking about when I was coming to the castle today, the field ahead of us, which is the bright, lovely, lush green colour, that is the called the cricket pitch. The young lads in the village of Gilmerton used to play cricket up there, so it's called the cricket pitch. And the Witch's Stone we've passed. This one is something, it's got something to do with the stone circle, and then, well, sorry, cavalry. The stone circle, I should say, is not visible just now. It's buried under all that foliage and vegetation.